Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Doing Well, the Wellbeing Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We're champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Lu Ngo, coming to your ears from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's learn together. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Doing Well. And on this week's episode, we are celebrating Christmas. So we have to talk about dieting and eating and all that sort of fun things. Today, we're going to talk about feasting for the holidays, embracing a healthy diet. And we have our wonderful guest, Nikki Valentini, in our studio today. Nikki is a clinical nutritionist and functional medicine practitioner. She specializes in gut health with a special focus on hormone and thyroid health, as well as neurodevelopmental disorders like ADHD, autism. Nikki is a registered practitioner with the MINDD Institute and is currently undertaking further studies in nutrigenomics and genetics. I said that right. In her spare time, Nikki loves spending time in nature and meditating. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Well, it's a fun topic, and we're kind of recording ahead of time. So, obviously, we're not doing this live. Christmas is a little while away, not that far off. But when I think about, the holiday seasons and, like getting into the mind frame of, okay, what are we going to eat for the holiday? I'm kind of like half excited, half scared because, that's like the season for feasting. And, New Year is going to come around and then, like all the other holidays. And especially from my background, we have Lunar New Year as well. And then we're going to celebrate. I'm going to eat a lot. So I know for a fact that I don't know about the audience, but for me, this is going to be very helpful. So I'm excited to talk to you about this topic today because I'm like, okay, let's get ready for the holiday season where it's going to be all about feasting. And I'm going to be like freaking out because I probably won't exercise as much, and then everything is going to be so good. Mm-hmm. All the food and, dessert and everything. So going to talk about it very soon, and I'm glad we're talking about this. But before we do that, I'm curious about your professional journey because you do very, niche things in your career. So I wonder why you chose this line of work and how you got here in your career.
Well, I think I grew up in an Italian background, and obviously also food, so important, so central to that culture. So we grew up with a huge emphasis on food in our home on good food and eating naturally, whole foods, that kind of thing. Different to what you would think for the health food movement today, but in regards to just the 70s and 80s in Australia, that was our food we weren't buying much from the supermarket that was not a food that you can recognise. So it started sort of there, and then I had my own health crisis in my early 20s, and I healed naturally from that. And that sort of started my curiosity. And central to that was my diet changing. And I had quite a good diet, but really having to really look at it. So I did that and totally changed my life, where I could sleep 6 hours a night and have so much energy. My moods were completely level. My weight was stable, and I was really having a great time, having an amazing time. And then I went into, in my work life, I went into sort of food advocacy and local food systems, working in the not-for-profit sector, a little bit like public health, but not as a public health nutritionist at that point. And then I had sort of been dodging around working out the next part of my career life, and I decided to study clinical nutrition. So I studied clinical nutrition, and I had sort of following my nose, really, things that I've tried lots of different little things in the area of how nutrition impacts our lives. And this is sort of where I've come to seeing a number of clients, and the way I can have the biggest impact with them is there were things missing before I started to really look at methylation and genetics and that kind of stuff. So that's sort of how I got here, really. I love growing food. I've studied permaculture, and I live on a property where we grow food and have an orchard, and everything is as natural as we can be, which keeps everyone in balance, I think.
That's so cool. You grow your own food, Like, I wonder what that is like.
Hard work.
In Melbourne as well.
Well, I live in central Victoria, so our climate's a little bit the same and a little bit different because we don't have as much concrete. I live on a 10-acre property, and we have some vegetable gardens, old orchards there as well. So there's it's great to be able to walk outside and pick something. We're in a little bit of a low part of the season. Now things are starting to grow pre-Christmas, and but come February, then there's massive abundance. But you can often rely on lettuce to be there, and all the herbs, and then different foods depending on the season.
Yeah. That must be a different lifestyle, compared to what we know, especially here in the city, right? We're in the Melbourne CBD, and it's kind of like, I cannot imagine someone like, I grow my own food and, just go out and pick something today.
Oh, wow.
So
yes.
fun.
Yeah. I think I moved out of the city, I think 20 years ago. I was living in the inner city, and I had two very young children. My daughter was 1.5 and my son was 6 months old, and we decided that we wanted to mix it up a whole lot, and we moved out to a property and started from there. I learnt more and more about growing food, and it was sort of a sense of going back to my heritage as well. So growing food, and I got really obsessed with that, as I tend to do with things. And there's sort of a extension. My kids grew up around the veggie garden, picking food as it was ready, and that was all very normal for them. And they're all very great cooks. Making food from scratch is really natural to them, from just picking something and turning it into a dinner. So
love that. That's beautiful. That's a wonderful childhood right there, especially in this day and age. It's so great to hear. Well, certainly you have so many things that you can share with us now. I know for a fact, because that sounds like something that a lot of people struggle with, like even just go to the supermarket, right? It's like so enticing to not go to the fresh produce section and, go somewhere else. And,
absolutely,
it's especially in this season, like it's so tempting, all the like pre-made sort of like, I don't know, like what people have here, because I don't really celebrate Christmas, but all the pre-made pavlovas and like, like all the cooked meat and like, anyways, like it's just a lot of temptation.
There's a lot of temptation. And I often say, I spoke to a group last week actually who we were looking at health and food and what to look for a healthy diet. And I think it comes back to knowing what the ingredients mean.
Yeah.
When you look at the packet.
Yeah.
I think it's vitally important to actually, what is that?
Yeah.
Have a look at it. You can Google it and find out.
Someone told me, either someone told me or I read in an article somewhere, if you cannot read the ingredient, maybe don't have it.
Yep. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I was like, that's a good point. It's actually like quite hard to keep up, which is why we're gonna talk about this topic in detail, because I'm sure the audience, if they're clicking on this episode, chances that they want to improve, this whole like feasting through the holiday activity, because it's hard to manage, especially because temptation is around, and people want to go out and eat, or they would invite you over for a meal. So I think this is going to be very helpful for everyone, and we are going to have fun with it. But before we get into that part, we would love to get to know you more. And we have a part called Have You Met Nikki? So I'm going to get to know you more through some of your favorite things. First thing first, what is your favorite book?
So that's such a hard question to answer, because there's been so many books that have been so great. And then there's fiction and non-fiction. And I think there's a book that I really like at the moment that is kind of topic appropriate, and it is a non-fiction. So it's called Dirty Genes by Dr. Ben Lynch. And I I really love that book. A couple of my clients have said they think it's a little bit too technical for them, but I actually found it an easy read, so I can't quite tell who it's meant for the general public, but it's actually a really beautifully written book that is easy to understand about the basics of living a healthy life and what it does to your genes. So that's a book I really enjoyed recently. I don't read a lot of fiction books except in the holidays. So I'm just trying to think what I have lined up there. There's a book I have lined up to read, and it's called it's the second book from an author who has written a book called Braiding Sweetgrass. What is it called? It's sitting by the bed. Can't remember, but Braiding Sweetgrass is an amazing book as well. It's a beautiful book about how we weave ourselves into nature. And there's even this beautiful section in there about what it's like when you walk through the forest and you see food growing, and you might pick a berry, for example, compared to how it is when you walk into the supermarket. And so the reciprocity in a supermarket is payment. You pay for something. But when you take something out of nature, or pick a flower or take anything out of nature, what is the reciprocity? What are you giving back? There's a whole lot in there in that book about it, which is very beautiful, very beautifully written, woven together. Yeah.
That is beautiful. I love that.
Yes.
And it's very on topic as well, right? Because it's like this season is the season you're going to go and buy a lot of stuff. And you, on the other hand, grow your own food. So, you probably know a thing or two about how you give it back to nature through that process.
Yeah.
So that's really nice to hear. Now, holiday season's coming. Lots of people will spend time watching movie. What is a movie you have been enjoying recently?
I don't watch a lot of television or movies at the moment. I think I'm just got my head down in the world of genetics, probably. So I'm trying to think. There was what is a movie that I've watched recently that I really enjoyed? I actually can't even think. There was a film called Holy Smoke. There's a film called Holy Smoke, which I really enjoyed. And it's all about pre-war Germany. So I enjoyed, it was quite, I think I really like a film that offers me a really big perspective on life and the way other people lived and what people went through. So, yeah.
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 Beautiful. Well, I've never heard of that before, so that's certainly interesting.
It's an older film. Yeah, it's an older film.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably good for the holiday, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you just want light viewing. So that was probably not it.
Well, depends on what people like. If someone wants light viewing, maybe not. But I think the holiday season is good for getting new perspective.
It is.
Yeah.
It really, really is. I definitely love to take the time in that to not think for a moment and then to allow in all sorts of new thoughts.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
So a lot of our guests actually don't listen to podcasts, interestingly enough. I wonder if you do. And if you do, what is a show you've been enjoying?
I listen to so many podcasts.
Okay.
I love podcasts.
Great.
So at the moment, the one I'm listening to the most is it's on topic as well. It's called Biohacking Superhuman Performance.
Oh, wow. What a mouthful.
Yes. And the woman who runs it, Nat Needham, is incredible. She's a peptide specialist. So it's very on topic for me as well. So I'm very interested in the use of peptides for health conditions at the moment. So, and how we can work with peptides, which are basically amino acids, which are basically protein, but in a specialized form. So that's what I listen to a lot of at the moment.
Wow. That sounds very niche. So I wonder who's going to enjoy listening to that apart from people in your profession.
Yeah.
Maybe our audience might pick that up if they're interested in this area. Maybe they want to get into this area professionally.
Yeah, and I think it's not really just geared at professionals. It's often geared at a lot of biohackers. So I don't know if you know much about the biohacking world, but the biohacking world is a world where there's a lot of anti-aging medicine and a lot of genetic study, but they really drill into the way our bodies are responding to our environments and what's biochemistry, what our biochemistry is doing, which is I'm very passionate about.
Yeah. Nice. That is interesting. All right. Well, now let's talk about your role model.
God, and I looked at that and I'm thinking, a role model. I have so many role models on so many levels.
Yeah.
So I would say, there's so many role models I have. So professionally, there's role models, but I guess also in life, my biggest role models are my children, because they're definitely the ones who teach me a lot about myself and about life. So my 3 children are definitely very, very high on that list. There's my meditation teachers, they're role models as well. So I practice Vedic meditation and I'm very passionate about the use of meditation for health as well. So the Mahasoma Collective meditation teachers are amazing. So I'd say probably, in regards to my life, they're the people, children and the meditators.
Oh, beautiful. Especially the children part. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet.
They're amazing. They just teach you everything and in a really hard way.
Oh, okay.
And good way.
Oh, that sounds wonderful to hear. I mean, I think I've heard one other guest so far. Only one person has talked about the fact that their kid is their role model. And that was beautiful for me because it was the first time that I've had this sort of conversation where someone says their kid is their role model. Because a lot of the time people kind of saying, kids have to, see their parents as role models, right?
Yeah.
And then when you have this perspective of, my children are my role models, I'm like, yeah, that's cool.
Well, they're the people that kind of make you try harder. They're the people that make you go, I got to do better at this thing. Like if you have a communication that's really doesn't go well, or you have a strong drive to make it work.
Yeah.
So there's the one that make you really question yourself and the things you say and how you say it. So
that is true.
And how to strive to be better. So and they'll point it out. They don't hesitate.
Well, that's really good to know. I mean, I'm not a parent myself, but I know a lot of parents will probably listen to this and kind of giggle, and get some new perspective, perhaps. That's fun.
Yeah,
especially for the holiday where you really think about it. It's like time for family, and you reflect on all these things.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I do often say to my kids, and it's sort of true. It's quite funny. Your mum is always right. And it's not just in a superficial way. It's actually like I always know when there's something going on for them. I always kind of can feel out these things. And even if they try and tell me, no, this situation is not going to end like that. And I try not to be, I try just to be the silent observer because they're young adults. But it's also like I come back sometimes and go, see, told you, I'm right. I was right about that.
Yeah, I think that's what we learn growing up, right? That's about all our moms. Moms are always right.
Yeah.
And, like that is kind of like, initially it was a joke that was going around, but then the more you grow up, the more you realize how true it is.
It's so interesting. I even remember when my oldest daughter doesn't mind me saying this, but when she first kissed a boy, I just knew. And I knew I would know. She didn't tell me straight away. And I went, you kissed a boy. She's like, how did you know? I'm like, I don't know. It's just this weird mum gift I've got.
Yeah, you know that Spider-Man, like the Spidey sense? You have the mommy sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Whatever that's called.
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from. I think we've all got it.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, what is a course you've completed that has really inspired you?
I've done so many that have completely inspired me. I think at one point, one that caused me to really pivot and change. Oh, there's been a couple. Can I say a couple?
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. So when I first studied permaculture, I think that was a really profound understanding of a human's relationship with the landscape, with their surroundings on all levels. So that was a really big one. Another one, I did part of a building biology diploma, and building biology is the science of healthy living in healthy buildings. And the toxicology that I studied there was, I nearly had a nervous breakdown because of the toxins in the environment that you actually can't avoid. But then I recovered from the nearly nervous breakdown and really started to understand the impact of toxins on the body, which then sort of took me into the clinical nutrition world as well. And the other one is on a more personal level is nature connection workshops that I've done. So going out into nature for days on end and sitting with nature, having practices around sitting with nature and waiting for nature to tell you things, which sounds pretty out there, but it is very present. The just sitting and observing birds can be a wonder. And how we're very connected to them actually.
Yeah, my brain just immediately it's going to the woods right now. Like I'm in the woods mentally. That's the space. So good.
Well, there's that beautiful practice of Shinrin Yoku, which is nature bathing, which is practiced in Japan. It's it's like a medicinal. There's a whole lot of places in Japan they'll test your blood pressure before you go, and they test your saliva. As well. And then when you come out, they test your blood pressure and your saliva again. There's all these studies done on the effects on the body from nature bathing. So I think it's a really, we are nature. So
I just learned about that terminology this year, actually. I read a book, it's on the power of fun. And then nature bathing is one of the things that the author recommended based on her research. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And I got the book with me, went camping, and then read about nature bathing again in that process. And it's just like, it's so refreshing. Like, it's so great to be there and just like be in nature reading a physical book. Nothing really compares to that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And yet it's so simple. Nothing compares to it, and it's so simple.
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing fancy, because a lot of the activities, especially when we talk about the holiday, to kind of like drive to the topic, a lot of people kind of thinking, it's a holiday, gotta like go out, like have a fancy meal and, whatever. Like lots of activities.
Yes.
I actually, in the process of growing older and growing up, I realized that the best thing we can do is actually spend more time in nature and do things that actually don't cost us a lot of money.
Yes.
And explore and connect with nature around us, just like what you were saying earlier. It is a beautiful thing, and it enhances our well-being.
Yes.
This show is about well-being. So now let's talk about well-being.
Yes.
And let's talk about feasting. I love this topic, especially because I think for people that are kind of like, I'm really into the well-being space and I love eating and it's a struggle. This is kind of like a multi-layer conversation where people are going to be like, I know that I need to be a certain way or like do certain things. But then it's a really hard balance, I think. So let's start broad. Let's talk about well-being first. Now, what does well-being mean to you?
So well-being is, I think it's those times when you feel whole and balanced and that you're not sort of rushing ahead of yourself. You're in yourself, and if you feel your mood is able to meet the need of your day. There's so many things for well-being, but I think when you can feel gently in yourself and calm, that's well-being. And you can meet the demands of what you can possibly produce. On any level with your work and your home life and your sleep and
there are so many things in life to balance. And
there are.
When we think about the holiday season, actually, like that's a time where people talk about well-being more. A lot of people kind of say, this is my time to recharge.
Yes.
And I kind of think it is not that really, because the holiday can be demanding, especially on parents, maybe. Like that's how I observe the holiday from my mom. Like it's such a stressful time for her because there's so many things that she needs to organize, lots of meals to cook. And actually like the work that she's done on her well-being the whole year kind of helps then rather than that is a time to recharge on and work on her well-being. And I find that to be like an interesting thing because the holiday shouldn't be that tough on people.
Yeah, it's interesting the expectations we put on, even when you say this feasting thing, and it is the way that we commune with one another is with food, which I think is beautiful. And yet we always have this desire to go overboard, to make too much food, like more food than we ever really need.
Yeah.
I just took a group. I take groups through a cleanse every year. So I just finished yesterday with a group for a 2-week cleanse. And part of that, a portion of the people fasted for the first week. And I asked them to observe in that what they feel when they want to eat something. Because often we're not really eating because we're hungry. We're eating because we want to fill something up. We want to stop feeling something, or there's a whole process that you might go through when you actually just don't do it. What's left when I'm not eating? So I find it really interesting, the idea during the holidays of this feasting and this idea that there's a sense of abundance that we want to have.
Yeah.
And we do that with food and our company, but we could do it with a little bit less food and the company, because the company is really the spirit of what we're so celebrating
true.
Is one another being together.
Yeah.
It's quite...
I guess that is actually, now that you've pointed that out, it's one of the misconceptions people have about well-being, especially during the holiday season. Like the more food we have, the better the sense of well-being we'll all have.
Yes.
But it's actually not that, because I realized, and this is upon reflection of, like hanging out with groups of friends, when we're together, we have a great time. It doesn't matter what we eat, really.
Yes.
Like when we are hungry, we eat something, we fill ourselves up, and then that's great.
Yes.
But there's also this element of, when you hang out, you got to have snacks around you. And then you're constantly snacking, and then you feel lethargic after that. Because you're just filling yourself up with lots of like random carbs and things you can't read, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people as well, because I'm with my friends. I'll be like, okay, whatever they eat, I'll eat.
Yeah.
There's not really much self-control there, because it's so easy to get sucked into it.
So true.
So that's one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, when we talk about the holiday season. What are some of the other misconceptions you think people have about well-being?
I think misconceptions about well-being. I think, you can really overdo it, well-being. So, I do have some clients that will be, they get up at 5 and they go to the gym, and then they come back and have the perfect smoothie, and they race off to work, and they work all day, and then after they've got this stuff booked in, and then they do this, and then they'll crash out at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then they get up again and do this thing the next day. And in all of that, which is all really, really healthy practices, it's just too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much. I think that's a misconception about well-being, is that if I do all the things, then I will be well. And the hardest part is stopping. It's just stopping and just not doing any of the great things, you know. So that's, I think that's a misconception about that we get caught up in for well-being, that well-being, and I do the same myself. I can totally get caught up in that as well, but that we can just be doing too much, and stopping is vital.
That is true. Like that, I couldn't agree more, because this year I got back into fitness, started going to the gym again, and I overdid it. And I didn't realize it at first, but I overdid it because no matter what happens the previous day, then the next morning I have to go. And I realized that I was, instead of working out enough, I was working out too much, and I didn't sleep enough.
Yes.
Some days, because some days it's hard to fall asleep, and then I commit to myself that, okay, you know what, like I'm gonna wake up at 5:45, I'm gonna go to the gym, first class that they have, which is really great. But then some days I wake up and I'm like, oh God, I'm tired. And then I come back from the gym and I'm even more tired. Because, you get a little bit of an energy boost after the workout, but then shortly after you're going to crash because you don't have energy.
Yes. And it is really listening to the body and that fine level of feeling of what does my body really need today? Because we tell ourselves stories. So you could wake up one morning tired and go, no, I won't go to the gym today because I'm just tired. And you could be used to telling yourself that. So when you're used to telling yourself that and you want to change it, you go, no matter what, I'm just going to go. And there's this hard place of finding what does my body really need today? Do I need to go to the gym? I mean, I can make a goal of saying I'll go 3 to 4 times a week, which is a decent amount to go. But what am I stressing? What's the stressor in my body? What am I not really listening to? But how did the message get mixed up too? Because I think we all go through that because we're all overproductive. Generally, people are overproductive and adrenalized, or underproductive and fatigued. There seems to be this huge divide of the super productive people and then the underproductive people.
Yeah. Actually, it is a point of struggle because I remember talking to my housemate about it yesterday. It was the other day. It was really funny because I have the problem of going to the gym too much and she has the problem of never going to the gym, even though she has a membership. And I remember talking to her about this, which is quite an interesting point of view when you think about well-being. It's kind of like the flip of the switch because in a sense, we're both tired, but in different ways. I'm not letting myself rest enough and she's resting way too much.
Yep.
She's like, she told me, she was like, oh, I finished another TV show today. And I'm like, oh, that's great. What was that about? And then, she talked about it. And then I was like, so have you gone to the gym? And she was like, no. And then she was like, I'm going to go tomorrow. So that conversation sort of loops about 2 weeks. It kind of loops about 2 weeks. And then after that one day, she was like, oh, I'm not going to make it to my class today because, I have to do this. And I was like, do you want to go on a walk with me? And that's when it kind of changed because I think I went to the gym that day already, but I was like, I need actually, I don't need to go to the gym and because I get, covered in all these equipments. I need to go out in nature. That's what I'm lacking.
Yes.
Because there's that sense of, when you were saying overdoing it, I was overdoing the gym thing and, underdoing the spending time in nature.
Yes.
So then we went for a walk. I sort of did sprints and she was jogging and then we did some exercises in nature.
Yeah.
And by the end of that week, she didn't go for another class or anything like that.
Yes.
That week it was just the only workout of the week. But then she did say, we were doing this gratitude practice. We're like, oh, what's the good thing that happened this week? And she said, oh, yeah, the highlight was working out with you the other day. And I was like, oh, that's so good to hear.
Yeah.
And she has something else to talk about rather than TV shows.
Yes.
Which is really beautiful to hear because, it's kind of I get to, we get to spend quality time together. We get to go into nature. She sort of switches up her routine. And I was not overdoing the, being in the gym part. I was actually, spending more time in nature. And then I took a break on one of the days that week. So just kind of have a rest day. And I was like, yeah, this is great. I don't need to go every day.
No, you really don't need to go every day.
Yeah. And you shouldn't, I think.
Yeah.
You need to have rest days.
Yeah. And it depends what
nice.
you're trying to move. I think, in yourself, there's some people they need to just get moving. They need that really strict moment of locking themselves in because I think I get into that. I have to go 3 days a week. I have to do that. But that's quite reasonable. Some people, when they get to the 6 days, if they have the energy to meet that, great, then it's fine. But often where people are forcing themselves into that, and that's not actually aligned with what your body really needs.
Yeah.
So I think, there's some nuance.
Yeah, that is true. I think that's a really big misconception about well-being, when we talk about exercising. And I do think for me, it's kind of that observation. We do need more time in nature so we can combine exercising with nature even better.
Yeah.
Not necessarily you have to go to the gym 5 days a week.
Yeah.
That's probably too much of gymming time and not enough time in nature.
Totally. And just even walking at a decent pace is enough to set your hormones into a certain place, release serotonin and have things moving, and dopamine as well. All these hormones start to regulate or fire up and regulate in your body so they're accessible.
Yeah.
So and that means when those hormones, there's a cascade of events that happen with those hormones, like your blood sugar regulates, in your blood sugar regulating, you will actually regulate your weight, start to regulate weight just from dropping the stress and walking in nature.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of research around that, being just as effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think we're speaking of things that we're feeding our body and, like listening to our body, it's a perfect time to talk about diet because, we feed our bodies with a lot of things, exercises and then nutrition. So how would you define a healthy diet, especially for the context of this holiday season? We have a lot of temptation.
Yes.
And it's probably unfair to say a healthy diet is, you cut out all the sugar and you don't really eat anything that the holiday provides you. Because I think that kind of defeats the purpose of enjoying life and, your well-being.
Yes. You don't want to be the person that says, no, everywhere. But I think in essence, a healthy diet is where you're eating whole foods, as in not whole foods, just weird health foods, but just foods that you recognize, like even that includes potato and, all the vegetables and meats and, vegetarian proteins and all of those things in their form that they were made in, generally speaking, without the numbers that we talked about before or the strange additive names. And the other thing I think is that I think I see quite a lot at the moment is overeating. So we are talking about the holidays, and I think that finding the balance between eating enough and enjoying whatever's there to celebrate with people, but not overeating to the point where you feel exhausted later or you're bursting at the seams and your body has this huge load to deal with. It can send systems into disarray, essentially. It's like all the enzymes that, with digestion, we start with the mouth, the saliva, the stomach acid, the enzymes from the pancreas, and then the bile from the bile duct. They're all there in they start breaking down food in the mouth, then the stomach, then the enzymes are injected in, and then it goes into your intestines it has been basically vaporized by this time. And in the intestines, it absorbs through the lining into the body and is used for our energy and for the energy of all our organs. But when you overeat, you actually start shutting down all those systems. So food ends up going into your gut it's not vaporized anymore. It's in large portions that actually you don't use. It can make you constipated, or it can make you get aches and pains, get what's called leaky gut. So I would say overeating is a thing, but don't not eat or restrict too far during the holiday season because it's a celebration and you're being collective with everybody, but not to that point where you can almost feel it coming up your throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, which can I think I'm quite guilty of that too when I see abundance of amazing food in front of me and I just want it. Yeah, I just want it. And that idea, we even fill ourselves up on the snacks before the meal and then the meal itself, and then there's dessert. And it's like, which one can I just make a little bit smaller? Ideally, in a perfect world, what you eat is pretty much what you can hold in two hands in a meal, whatever that contains, whatever your food preferences are really there. But that's what your body can really digest in one go. And if you think then we've piled dessert on top or the snacks and all of the things, it's really a bowl of what you can hold in two hands. So in regards to the holiday season, if you're snacking on healthier options that are foods that you recognize, you give yourself a couple of days and you need to do that. But, in my practice, I talk a lot about what do you really need and checking yourself. What do I actually really need here? Well, I can enjoy a smaller piece of that cake because I'm going to enjoy that, and that's really important. It's so important to, enjoy what you're eating rather than just taking it in mindlessly.
Yeah.
So, eating with that sense of what am I going to enjoy here and what I really need. I think I just spent a month with my family in Italy, and a lot of them are very amazing cooks and they want to feed you big time. And after a week, I just went, I actually can't do this anymore. I love overeating, but I can't do this anymore. And they packed it back in because I just keep bringing more and more things out because it's love.
Yeah.
I think we all use that as an expression of our love
Yeah,
for
it
one
is.
another, particularly in these cultures that have food as a central part. So,
Yeah.
but, I really observed that, oh gosh, that's a lot of food. They're trying to get me to take in a lot of food and just holding back. Looking at it and going, how much do I really need here? Which is hard to do when it's delicious.
Yeah, that is true. And which is one of the challenges in the holiday, right? Because when we talk about maintaining that healthy diet, I do believe that you cannot really have a healthy diet without, delicious food that you enjoy, like cake, like you were saying, dessert,
Yeah.
Those things are essential because, they exist for a reason. They exist for you to enjoy them. And it's hard because when you're with people that you love, it's, like you want to make sure that you reciprocate the love. Like, for example, my mom, whenever I'm home, she would make a feast. Like every day would be a feast. She'd be like, oh, what do you want to eat today? What do you want to eat today? And then she'd be like, oh, you haven't had that in a while, this in a while. And then, like all the options will be there. And I'm like, it's so great. And then, like, I'm that kind of person. I love eating just like you. I'm like, if it's in front of me, I'll eat it. And it's really hard to maintain that healthy diet, quote unquote, whatever that might be for each of us. And I think the other challenge probably would be, when you have a lot of people around you, that's kind of like pressure. And I know this for a fact. It's also related to the first point, actually, because my extended family, they're really big on, celebrating together with food. And if you're not eating, you're not having fun. So you have to show them you're having fun by eating.
Yes, it's so true, isn't it? And what's wrong? Or is there something wrong with you? Or it's it's incredible, isn't it? It has this real downer feeling, like when there's someone going, no, I won't have that or that or that or that. It's just, it has this, I'm really interested in that because I've never sort of come to a place where even I'm comfortable with that, even though after a week with my cousins in Italy, I was really like, I can't. I was being polite for that time and now I actually can't. But they were like, oh, okay, right. And then there's a whole other issue involved in our relating to one another because they're kind of like, is this okay? Is that okay? And you don't want that really. But there is, we see that as an expression of rejection if someone doesn't want to go
that
there.
Is true.
And I think it goes back, generations and generations and generations through starvation and all these different. This is a celebration of life, and life is food. So here we are celebrating with one another, but it does feel like rejection. So I think I've managed over the last few years to get away with just having it where I'm not rejecting anything, but nobody will notice how much I'm eating. And sometimes I just overeat. But, generally I'm just quiet about it, or there's the food in the middle of the table and you just take what you need. And I don't try to go for 4 plates like I might have once. I'll just try and stick to 1 or maybe 2 max.
That's true. And actually, one other thing that I noticed would probably be when you're participating and you're eating, especially the holiday, you're eating, but then everyone else is still eating, but then you're done because you're for example, you're a fast eater.
Yes.
And you've already finished your portion. They will start to go, why are you stopping? Keep going. But then I find the trick to that is just to pace myself.
Yes.
And another big component of that is also sometimes I realized I didn't notice what I was eating. Because it was just like, oh, it's all so delicious. Let's just stuff it.
Yes.
It's so good. And then I realized, this is where mindful eating really helps. And that's what the research shows as well. Mindful eating really helps in this scenario to kind of help with the overeating potentially, and to help us maintain that healthy diet. So for our audience who's kind of new to this concept, what would you say about mindful eating, from a scientific point of view? How does that actually help our healthy diet and, sort of maintaining this balance, especially for the holiday season?
Yes. So there's a number of things number of layers to mindful eating. One, generally I ask my clients to, when even if they're going out or cooking a meal at home, is to smell the food. You walk into a restaurant, you can smell the food, but acknowledge you've just smelt food. Because when you, even my mouth started going then, when you acknowledge that you've smelt food, and I can't smell food, but I just even thought about it, your saliva starts to activate and get ready for digestion. So your body starts to prepare itself for what it's going to do next. So that's a part of the mindfulness of going, okay, I am going to eat, even you just can get in the habit of it. After a while, it's a real habit because we do smell it and our bodies sense it. But if we just give it a momentary thought, I'm going to eat, I'm going to be eating soon. Oh, great. So in regards to that mindfulness there, mindfulness of what you really need, and doing that with grace, but mindfulness of what you really, really need. So as I mentioned before, I just took a group of people through this cleanse, and some people were fasting, juice fasting as part of that, vegetable juice fasting. And it is that question of going, what does my body really want in this moment? And in some ways it's quite a luxurious thing to go, what do I really want right now? But also, what do I really need right now? So applying mindfulness to it, I often take cleansers through exercises of tasting their food and sensing how it feels, noticing what happens when you've taken a bite. And if you can actually start to really feel it and think, oh, my body actually doesn't like that. I like that. The taste of that is amazing. But my body went, sometimes you'll have a little burp. Sometimes you might sniffle. Sometimes there's lots of little feelings. Sometimes your stomach might gurgle. There could be a few things that happen. So in regards to mindful eating, you can go right into the detail of that, being super aware of how it feels for the food to go in, rather than, I'm used to eating that thing. I love eating that thing. I'm addicted to that. It's, which is always going to be tempting. There's always foods that are going to be there. And I always say, I'm just going to add this to that. Eat with joy. Eat with joy. Don't eat with anger. Don't be arguing at the table, or just eat with joy. Eat with mindfulness. And, even for some people, they'll do a blessing before they eat because that brings them into mindfulness about thank you for this meal, thank you for feeding me, whatever it is. There's so many different sayings in different traditions and cultures. So I think kind of an acknowledgement is often good. Okay, thank you. Thank you for making it. Thank you to the cook, or thank you, whoever that is. So in mindfulness, then we actually start our digestion going. We're more likely to eat a quantity of how much we need, and we're more likely to eat food that feels right for our body in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it changes a lot how you take the food in, how you digest the food, and it slows you down too.
Yeah.
So that Christmas tip of just slow it down a little bit. So, if you're eating a little bit less, you're at the same pace as everyone else.
Yeah. That is so true. I feel like it is something that we probably overlook because a lot of the times, and this is probably relatable to a lot of people out there, you go to work and you're kind of like, I have this 15, 30 minutes to have my lunch. I'm just going to be really quick. And then that you bring that home as well. So, whenever you're at the dinner table, you're kind of like, food's here. Gotta finish it really quick. And then there's no that act of mindful eating. And I think I learned about savoring as well, which is another thing that is so important for this whole journey, because I think it's hard to know when to stop, but you will know when to stop when you actually pay attention. Most of the time we don't pay attention, right? Because we have to rush through it, or if we're with other people and it's a holiday and it's, lots of delicious food in front of you, you just kind of you're in the zone, probably having a conversation, don't really pay attention, don't really know what you're eating. And I think all of this is interrelated, because once we actually pay attention, like you were saying, you eat more slowly, you kind of pay attention, you enjoy it better.
Yes.
And it just makes the whole experience better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. I noticed for me when I go out for dinner, recently I went to a place and it was a set menu, and there were 3 or 4 small courses of beautiful food. And I just had that, I left there going, wow, I just feel really complete. I don't feel overstuffed, or I just feel like I can get on with things now. I'm not going to have to go home and digest and sleep. I feel good. There's nothing draining me. So this idea of having, lots of little smaller portions that are just enough, we feel great from food in that way. But we're so lucky to have such an abundance of food.
Yeah.
We're so lucky. And we I think we forget.
That is true. It's a reverse problem from before, right?
That's right.
Previously, people didn't have anything to eat. And there are not that many ways to cook food. And now we're kind of overwhelmed because there's so many things, so many different kinds of recipes.
I get totally caught up in that. I get completely caught up in that. I have such an amazing diet, and I forget how amazing it is. And it's quite decadent as well. Like I think, oh my God, I feel like this, I'm going to eat it. I feel like that. They're all very healthy options because I'm used to that, but I feel like it and I'll have it. And then even in that, I don't think I'm savoring enough. I'm not savoring the moment and what that is. And enough.
Yeah. We could all do a better job, right? No one's perfect.
No one's perfect.
Today
and I
might
think
be
perfection isn't great either.
Yeah. I mean, today might be good. Tomorrow you might slip up, and that's okay. It's about the reminding, which is why we're having these conversations, because I do believe that if our audience are clicking on this episode, they probably know about this already.
Yes.
It's like reaffirmation. You got to remember, don't forget about this. There's that mindful eating, there's that savoring. And also you mentioned portion earlier. So a very big part of this whole thing about, healthy diet is you gotta have portion control, which I think we're pretty good at when we were kids. Like for the popular people, like the popular population out there, just mainly all of us, we're probably good at portion control and limiting ourselves to like eating certain things. I think it's definitely harder in the context of the holiday.
Yes,
because what is portion control really? Like you have so many things in front of you. What is portion control? How does that work? So how can people go about applying this in a way that would help them to balance their diet, but not sacrificing that feasting aspect of the holiday?
Yes. So the first thing that comes to mind there is not snacking between the meals. Our bodies actually really need to stop between eating. So this idea of mindless, even if it's healthy snacks, one of my clients who just finished this cleanse with me, he did it last year as well, and he discovered he's super healthy. He does cleanses and fasts and has this very healthy diet, and he discovered last year that he literally eats about half a kilo of nuts a day, snacking. And he had to cut that out, and he felt amazing. He thought he needed it and he thought it was healthy, but it was actually too much of a good thing. And his digestion felt much better for not snacking. So technically our bodies do need this break because actually on the physical level, we sweep our digestive system, our intestines go through this sweeping process about 3 to 4 hours after we've eaten. So if you give yourself that 3-hour break, you're going to naturally be cleaning your intestines out, which is much better for your intestines. You'll have less debris lying around, which leads to leaky gut and then other health problems. So having that little break, that 3 hours break, mindless snacking between the meals, I reckon is a great beginning of portion control. So, because if you think you're just building up, you're just kind of continually filling up on whatever. So, yes, portion control. And really, I'm a big sucker for when the snacks come out before the food because I'm usually hungry. And then I've just totally eaten mindlessly all of these foods that I didn't really need. I probably needed a few things and they were delicious and they were salty and, cheesy and whatever else is going on there. And I didn't really need that much, the amount that I had, because these platters came out with this abundance of food on them that I'll try that, I'll have that and olives and then I'll do this and that. So I would say be mindful there in that moment, because then you can eat this main meal. And as I said before, approximately what you can hold in your two hands. That's a good tip. Yeah, it's an easy measurement. And then you're going to have dessert. So even if you've just minimized on that snack, the snacks between meals and the snack the hors d'oeuvres or whatever came out first, you've got a little bit of room. In our house, some of the kids will say, no, they'll say, oh, I'm full, I can't eat any more dinner, and then they can eat dessert. And they're like, no, that's a different stomach.
Yeah, I used to say that as well. I have a second stomach just for desserts.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We want to finish it off with this thing.
Yeah.
So, and then being mindful about how much dessert you really need. Normally our desserts are really sweet and sugary and actually are a powerful hit of something. But it isn't like if you really think about it, it is enough just to have one portion. I know at Christmas there's often the cake table or whatever, and everybody will fill up a whole plate of a variety of cakes. And I get the temptation because you want to taste everything, but maybe keep the portion small and taste everything. Half a piece of cake, not even the full quarter of a piece of cake. You can just get enough and enjoy it because, this is a celebration of life, isn't it, really? These holiday seasons are about a celebration. Hey, we're alive and we're together. Let's add food to that because that's life. So I think, that's being mindful of that snacking part, though, and the pre-dinner foods are a big. Yeah.
That is such a good tip, actually, because I remember every time I visit my family for Lunar New Year, there would be meals and there would be snacks, like they're like proper snack breaks.
Yeah.
Like they would be like, oh, like, okay, finished lunch, come here, let's have tea and dessert. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm so used to that.
Yes.
And I don't really realize how impactful that is until you've mentioned it, because every time we have the holiday season, everyone will gain weight.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
And there would be, like the activity of losing the holiday weight after that, which I find to be so funny because you basically gain it. So it's kind of like, okay, so where do we go from here? It's actually really interesting you said that, because I don't think it's a thing that can be changed like that, simply because it's such a beautiful thing, right? All the holiday traditions, like you finish your meal, you go and you have tea and then you have more snacks and you continue talking or playing games together, board games, card games, whatever that might be. And it just continues on. And I do think that when we talk about like filling up the void or whatever, like you were mentioning earlier, it is true. But then at the same time, in the holiday, it's harder because you get, like when you see people eat, you also want to eat.
Yes.
It's not like there's no void there really. It's just like it's a group activity.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You feel left out if you don't eat. And I find it really hard to say no, but I also notice a lot of people are really good at saying no. Yeah. And I adore that.
Yeah, some people are really good at just saying no, or even when all this collective snack thing comes out, they don't really go there. I'm not one of those people generally. I want it if I see it. It's there. Yeah. Definitely. It's just
me too.
But
so.
Yeah. But I try to now, my way of dealing with that, because I am classically an overeater, that would be a lot of what we've done in the past, is to just stop and go, okay, I want something salty here. I'm going to have the salty thing, but how much of that do I actually really need? How much do I really need? Savouring. The savouring. It's the word of the moment, I think. Yeah. Savouring is what it's all about. I'm going to enjoy that little salty thing, but I don't have to have 10 of them before I eat dinner.
100%.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah.
And I think noticing when you are full and actually saying no, because you're overworking your body, is also another thing that I've learned, doing this podcast and like learning from all the guests, and especially again, part of growing up as well. Cause like, I was younger. I was like, oh yeah, like, let's just eat, like whatever people eating, I'll eat. Yeah. I won't ever say no because, like it's such sentiment that you're bringing all this amazing food out here. And sometimes actually, even if the food's not amazing, but people are eating, I'll join them.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean,
it's challenging. So bottom line is it is challenging. We acknowledge that it's hard. So, we're participating in this conversation along with our audience, not to say that, even if you're sort of an expert in this area, having worked with a lot of clients, you are saying it yourself, you're not perfect, and that's okay. Yes. And perfect is actually bad.
Yeah, that's right. Perfect is too much. We are alive and we celebrate and we're messy and we're all the things that which is our lives, which we will continue to do. There's definitely no reason to beat yourself up about it, but it is like, we could start the fashion of saying, I'm just going to have a little bit less. And maybe everyone will start doing that at Christmas.
Yeah. I think that slowing down part is really good. And I'm going to apply that to my everyday meal, actually, not just the holiday.
Yes.
It is important because I notice sometimes I just like finish things really quickly and then I'm like, oh, what did I just eat?
Yeah, that's right. And, I often do a thing where I've made too much food and then I try and eat it all, because I don't want to waste anything. And I forget, even though it probably won't waste because I can keep it, I forget that. And I'll just finish that off because there's only that much left. So I'll just finish it now, which actually it was too much. So I think in the Zen tradition, they have they say you should leave the last bite on the plate and not eat it.
Ah.
Yeah, bringing that mindfulness to go, actually, no, I don't need that bit.
Yeah.
I had all of that.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
It's
really so hard to leave that last tasty morsel there.
Yeah, that sounds hard.
I haven't really mastered it. I've been trying sometimes, but I haven't fully mastered that one yet.
Wow. Okay. Well, we've sort of covered lots of grounds here, but let's get a bit more practical now. So let's go into our practice part and summarize it for our audience, or maybe throw in a little bit of something new, because I do believe that you've already mentioned a bunch of, meaningful tips and practice there that they can try, like, packing things in, anything that you can hold in your two hands. That's basically like your portion.
Yes.
The slowly, mindfully and eating and savoring whatever you're eating, and, leaving the last bite on the plate. All of those are great. But now if someone is kind of like, man, it's the holiday, you're making me remember too much. What would be a simple practice that you would recommend to our audience that they can try very simple this holiday season and see how it goes with a healthy diet?
I would say have a good breakfast, but have it technically in the body, you're better off eating when you're hungry. The healthiest kind of beginning of digestion is usually around half an hour to an hour after you've woken up. But if you don't have a hunger cue, then that's for another reason and for another story. But eat when you're hungry and eat that breakfast that is whole, healthy food, whether it's eggs and beautiful bread or a muesli or a smoothie or a juice or whatever it is. Have that and enjoy that, and then go forth and try the savoring and the portion control and those kind of things, and the non-snacking between the meals.
But, non-snacking.
Try not to snack between the breakfast and the lunch and the dinner that maybe you're spending with family or having, just if you can usually breakfast is the easiest one during the holiday season to manage. And breakfast sets you up for the day. It's completely sets you up. It'll inform your blood sugar, how your blood sugar is going to go. And blood sugar, the movement of our blood sugar is often the reason why people snack in the afternoon or they eat more, because they're actually trying to meet what's happening to their blood sugar in their energy levels. So often when you find when people are more likely to be underproductive, like we said before, they're actually their blood sugars is fluctuating in ways that is dictating. So they'll eat more because they're kind of hungry. The best antidote is exercise. And maybe that's a point. Between the meals, go for a walk. Go for a walk, even if it's 20 minutes. And for 10 minutes of that, 5 minutes of that, you're a little bit puffy. Do that, that's perfect. You're kind of going to be leveling your blood sugar out, which is vitally important in this day and age.
Yeah.
We're all experiencing from the refined foods that we all have access to and are very tempting, our blood sugar is an issue.
It is. Yeah, it is definitely something to look out for. I think that's a really good tip, like managing your breakfast. That is something within your control, before you go into any feast. Actually, on that, I do have a question, though, because a lot of people are kind of saying, and this is classic from my family, I'm just going to skip breakfast. I'm going to fast through breakfast because I'm going to have a feast for lunch and then another feast for dinner. How does that sound in this, world of balancing things and, all the blood sugar level? Does that actually help? This whole fasting through breakfast, does that actually help at all?
Well, that is a great question. That's a big topic. But so for men and women, it's a little bit different. But when people are fasting through breakfast and then they go and eat a massive meal that contains sugar or refined carbohydrates, which do the same thing as sugar, you are actually, one, your digestive system can't handle that. So you're not going to break it down very well. Two, your blood sugar, that's a lot. When you eat food, your body releases insulin in order to tell your body to pack away the extra nutrient or the extra energy from food into the muscles and cells. Pack that away for later. We'll need that later. But the more you have to signal your body to do a large amount of packing away blood sugar or insulin packing away the blood sugar or the energy, you throw out your blood sugar and you're giving it this huge spike and trough. And that's okay actually in one day. But if you're continuously doing that, you are throwing out your blood sugar, which will add to your stress. You may not get diabetes, but you might. You can slowly head towards that, but your stress levels change. Your adrenals start to activate because it's stressful. So I say to some people, even if you eat eggs, if you boil an egg, and you don't have to eat it straight away, but take it with you and just eat that boiled egg sometime before 10:30, particularly for women, because fasting. And it's age dependent. It varies genetically and age dependent as well. But if you're fasting, if you're fasting in the morning and then you suddenly eat a big lunch and eat it fast and quick, you're not doing yourself any favors hormonally at all. You're going to start throwing out hormones, and hormones is not only for your menstrual cycle but for your thyroid and your metabolism, and there's a whole lot of things that, and your stress hormones. So being mindful again, asking yourself, what is really right for my body in this moment? Because I know intermittent fasting is really fashionable, but for women, for example, in certain stages of their cycle, there's a time to fast and there's a time not to fast. And the time not to fast, I'll just go into that one because the whole lot is another podcast in itself, is the week before you menstruate. Don't fast. Don't fast then. Eat.
Yeah.
But eat well and don't snack.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point, because like I'm also sort of like struggling this myself, like still learning, because there's so much to learn about our own bodies, right? And then like all the different schedules we have, it's hard to keep up.
Yes. Yeah, particularly for people that leave really early in the morning for work and they're not hungry yet. And what do you do? You're better off just...
That was me this morning, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for waiting for me to finish my breakfast.
It was important.
Yeah, it was. I was going to get into like a not so great podcast if I hadn't had that. So I'm glad, I have this energy to do this. Anyway, yes. We digress.
Yes, that's right. And food is that. Food is energy. And when we think about energy, it's not just the energy for us to keep moving in our day. It's to a cellular level, our cells are doing things all the time.
Yeah.
And they need this sort of energy input to function properly, to clean our bodies, to detox naturally, to pump our heart and have our liver produce enzymes, and everything is down to energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that. I think that's a really great tip, especially the whole fasting concept there. I think for the holiday, it's quite important, because a lot of people might get into the misconception that, if I fast through breakfast, I'll be fine. Maybe you're not going to be fine.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you did that for a couple of days, it'd be okay. But I see a lot of people feel quite good on that sort of eating pattern, and then they get quite obsessed with that and do it for a very long time, and they push the fast out and then the next thing, they're not eating in the morning and they start eating at 3:00 in the afternoon, and they're actually really hungry. They grab for a whole lot of carbs, they eat this massive dinner, and their blood sugar's all over the place.
Yeah.
Because that's not, you're better off eating in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Around a 6-hour window, if you want to do that kind of diet, 6 hours in the middle of the day, and eating enough protein and fats and carbs that you get what you need, and you're not snacking later at night, because often that's what happens with those people who keep pushing that fast out.
Yeah.
Is that they eat this big meal and eat something for dessert.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they start again.
Yeah.
And that's just a blood sugar nightmare.
Yeah. There you go. That's really important, especially for the holiday, because
Yes.
a lot of people might get into that trap, also sleeping pattern, they might like sleep in and not eat. So this is like probably a really good thing to combine with your schedule, like during the holiday. Also keep a schedule.
Yeah, keep something of a schedule. Have a sleep in and start your day slower, because that's so good for our bodies, just to start a little bit slower when we can. But that idea of eating late in the night and eating sugar things before bed, technically not eating for at least 2 hours before you go to bed is ideal, because when we sleep, we detox. It's a natural detox time. So our body's organs are having a break from dealing with the inputs of the day, from the stimulus that we have with our work or whatever our studies, that we're having a break from that and a break from food.
Yeah.
But when you eat a big meal before you go to bed, you're just going to spend the night digesting. You're not actually going to spend the night detoxing. So it's a much better reset to finish at least 2 hours before you go to bed, at least. Yeah.
Also another great tip there, because I think, this is the struggle during the holiday, right?
Yes.
You eat until the last second. Like,
that's right.
You be eating all night.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then you end up going to bed. And the other thing is eating a meal. When you sit down to eat a meal, in regards to blood sugar and supporting yourself, is to eat the protein first, the vegetables, and then the carbohydrates at the end. So eating in that way, and again within the sort of portion control, is much better for your blood sugar. So you're not eating the carby part first, which will spike your blood sugar. Yes. Yeah. Eating it
interesting.
at the end. And usually because you try and have enough of the protein, vegetable sort of part of the meal. And so the carbohydrates doesn't need to be as much as what you do if you started with a meal. It's hard when you're eating pasta or noodles. It's really hard. That's a hard one.
How does that work?
Yeah.
It's tricky. But great tip. I think, whenever it works, we can apply it.
Yes.
The key is to be mindful about these things and, apply them when you can.
Yes.
And not beat yourself up when you cannot do it every day.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think, we could all use a break, especially because it's the holiday. People probably want to be relaxed and, take it slow, like you're saying. And sometimes they'll forget about this, and it's totally fine. The key is, you have the tools and you use it when you can.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And, don't underestimate the importance of enjoying yourself. Just enjoying yourself and enjoying the company that you might have in that moment.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
totally.
Yeah.
So true.
Balance, balance, balance.
Yeah.
It's all about balance.
Yeah. Love that. Okay. Well, we've covered all grounds with, well-being and healthy diet. And we probably have potentially opened the floor for another podcast, which we'll not do today because we're out of time. But we've got open mic for you now, which is your platform to talk about anything you are passionate about. So go for it.
So I am really passionate about so many things, but I'm really passionate about meditation, any form of meditation. I have my own practice, but any form of meditation I think is foundational to health. But when I say meditation too, there's walking meditation. Journaling can be a type of meditation. There's guided meditation that you can listen to something. And I'm really into it because, well, for me, it really works for me. It really works. I have really active mind. I'm always onto something. And I never thought I could meditate until probably about 6 to 8 years ago. And I see, for me, in my practice, in my life, my meditation sorts out my brain and all the busyness in my mind so I can really get to the point of what I really need to do. So I often tell a lot of my clients for meditation or journaling or some kind of lifestyle practice, because actually you can shove in all the healthy food you like, but if you're stressed out of your mind and you're disconnected from your body, it doesn't go in. So I'm really passionate about that. Really, really passionate about you can be as healthy as you like, by the book with your diet and all these kind of ways, but if you're stressed out of your mind, you can forget it.
Yeah. That is such a beautiful message. I couldn't agree more. It's so true. Because a lot of people are kind of like, oh, like I'm just going to keep doing the healthy things.
Yep.
But they're not really dealing what's in here.
Yes.
And I find that to be a really big thing that the past few years I'm just really torn, because whenever people are talking about like all these healthy things that they're doing, but they're not really talking about like you're saying, meditation or, just dealing with whatever's inside their head.
Yes.
I feel like they're sort of running away from that.
Yes.
Which is also tricky, because I think a very big part of having any kind of healthy balance in life is to do both.
That's
the
right.
inside, the inner work, and then on the outside, whatever you can do. And it's hard work,
It is. It is actually, I think it's the hardest thing for people.
Yeah.
Because it's if you really want to get into control of your diet, you can do that. But really getting in control of yourself is
it's a whole other can of worms.
It is. It's huge. So,
it is.
Checking in, that's why I think I could say that my children are my mentors, because they're the ones that actually make me really check myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, I could imagine. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's a whole other topic, and meditation could be its own podcast, to be honest.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll save that for another day.
Yes.
But really, thank you for being here. And if our audience would like to find out more about your work, where should they go?
So my website is www.supernature.com.au, and you can find me on Insta at supernature.nutrition. I practice around the place. You can see me online and things like that as well. But if you have any things going on, I run group cleanses and those kind of things. Yep, there's
Beautiful.
lots of little ways to connect in with the stuff that I'm doing.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thanks again for being here. I've had a great time. I feel like the holiday is less intimidating now that I have all these tips and tricks.
Me too.
I'm gonna visit my family soon, so at least I have these in my back pockets. I could just use them whenever I need to.
Yes,
that'll be great.
Or you can even just remind yourself of this conversation, because I think I'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's right. We were talking about that, and I did say that. So actually, we should do that.
Yeah. We should practice what we're preaching.
Totally.
Yeah, report back after the holiday.
Yeah.
See how we go.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
You have been listening to Doing Well, the Wellbeing Science Insights podcast, produced by the Wellbeing Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes are available from 10 life management perspectives and can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, and other podcasting apps available on your devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, share, and subscribe to our channel so that other people can find it and we can continue to provide quality content. More of our work can be found on our website, we.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Lu Ngo. Thanks for tuning in.